Second game seems to be slightly, or rather slowly, that's what I wanted to say, coming into reality, as it's going to be Marsh as the home map of Deities of Death, and looking at the civilization, it should be a pretty open and kind of ready game. We are seeing a lot of Norse in here, so far 4 Norse, and the 2 remaining civilizations are so far random. I'm not really thinking that it's going to stick. Popsy is quite probably going to be switching into Norse as well, and as for 7-Up, I'm not exactly sure, because he does play random quite often, but play it in RTS League or any kind of competitive match, I don't really think so. It's probably going to be switched into something else. Yeah, you can see that Popsy right now switched into Loki. But this is looking like a very heavy Norse game. Very Norse heavy game. It's definitely very nice to see, as, to be honest, you don't see all that many of them in the team games where the other civilizations would be missing. So kinda hoping that actually 7-Up is going to be having Norse as well. Just not to break the party in here, as that would be a pretty amazing game, to be honest, really. Ah, Odin, yes! That's the last guy that we're missing in the party. So yes, this is looking quite promising indeed. Quite promising indeed. So far we are seeing for TSMs Loki, Odin, and the last player also Loki. Whereas for dots we are seeing Loki, Thor, and Loki. So yeah, 6 Norse for the second game of the quarterfinals between Tsunami Clan and Deities of Death, and this is definitely going to be a whole lot different than what we have seen in the first match. Well then, let's start for example with J4, who was the unsung hero of the last game, who is probably gonna get a bit famous on Facebook and such with start to his game. And well, he's looking at a pretty decent game for himself, as he is going to be facing against 7-Up, so that's a bit more favorable matchup than against player. Against player, it's always pretty hard, as he is really one of the better players in the game. Let's just say one of the best currently. And well, the hunt seems to be pretty much safe for him, the gold as well. Even though it's not all that covered by the tower, it's still not that bad, I think. And he should be able to defend it without all that much of a problem in here. 7-Up using big hunt, of course. The great hunt, as he's also getting extra piggies, just on top of all those extra deer. And here we have a bit of a phone, so that means that we'll be having a bit more time to have a look around the bases of the players and around the map overall. Otherwise, pretty nice safe gold at the back of his base next to the tower, so that's pretty sweet for him. A bit better than what J4 is looking at the very start. But well, this is basically made up by the fact that there is a pretty decent gold for the teal player, as with the hunt as well, and I'm pretty sure that this water is gonna go all the way through wall. Yeah, you can see that it will. There is a channel in here, so that's going all the way through wall in here, and the position of the TC is pretty interesting. Not exactly sure where the other TCs are, because unusually we don't have any Oranos in the game. And it seems like we are going to be going, and this is going to be very important for the route, not only to 7-Up's base, or even to J4's. So yeah, oh, the TC is not really far away, so those two are going to be very important for both of them. And I'm fairly certain that who controls the top one is going to be controlling the bottom one as well, as there is a bit of a choke point in here that could be kinda controlled by either of the players, so let's see. But let's check the relics for trio helpful monkeys, that's not half bad, as that is an extra army where the numbers are actually very important in the early game. And for better unit line of sight, oh, this is going to be making raiding quite nice, especially for J4, who I think is going to be picking that up sooner rather than later. Another relic, 2 lions, so that's basically the same as the monkeys, useful on this map and in this specific matchup. And well, here we see that the green base for Killer Boy, who is in the pocket for Death, or rather for Deities of Death, is also having not a good position of the gold. This is going to be raidable from the right side, but could be quite nicely actually prevented by wall on there, so I don't really expect much of a problem for him. Nice deer patch at the back with gold as well, so that's not really half bad for the green player. And last to have a look at from Deities of Death is going to be Shelty, who is already spied upon on the Hunters. Yes, that's the best placement for the spy, especially in an early fighting matchup like we are going to be seeing in here. And otherwise, gold pretty decent next to the tower. And at the back, a nice patch of deer. But so far, I don't see any gold. So unless there is something in the darkness in here, the map is not all that favorable for Shelty. finally found the gold at the bottom, so still not really ideal. Definitely would like a gold about here, or really in the darkness, so let's see if Shelty will be having that or not. Another relic for a better ballista, LOS and range, that's the only relevant in here. Yeah, kinda sucks, maybe in the latest game it could be useful. Better Mythionite Crush Armor, definitely great for Lokis. Another relic is for Gold Trickle, that could be useful in there. And better wall hit points, yeah, definitely should come into play, as we are going to be seeing a lot of Radiant, so a lot of defense against that should be also coming up. Better Villager Farming Rate, yet another great relic. And there are another ones in the middle, with a better Building Pierce attack, very sweet, for defense, especially for town centers, and better Hero Speed. Oh, man, who is the Loki in here? Killer Boy is, and if he has seen this, I'm fairly certain that he should have seen this. He should be sending his first Herseer out of the temple there quite soon, as that will be helping him quite a lot in the Radiant overall. We are seeing the temples coming up from all of these players. Already have seen a very interesting wall, which is basically trying to make sure that J4 is not going to be surprised by the pocket or by the blue player, as we are right now switching into Popsy, who is already having Forcity also clicked in and a bit of idle time, which is kind of unfortunate, as I'm fairly certain that seconds will be very important in this game early on. Otherwise, just now finishing with the hunt, but he is having something in the forefront, not much, just these cranes, but there is, oh, a lot of piggies in the middle, so that's going to be pretty much fine. And if he doesn't want to venture that far, there are already a lot of them right behind the forest of his own base. So let's see. Oh yeah, Herseer is already aiming for the super important relic. 10% hero speed. Oh man, this is going to be making a lot of difference in the Radiant in here. And we also see that 7-Up is actually having a quite nice look around the base of his opponent through the very nicely sent out ravens from the Odin. Already working on the wall-in, but first he needs to go into Longhouse, as he's going with the Valkyrie for some kind of forest firing and such. And this is going to be a very interesting wall for him. I would be kind of liking it a bit more to the left. Possibly could have been shorter and allowed him a bit more space. But it's also allowing him to actually lure his opponent closer to the tower fire if he opts to do so. So, yep, could be useful for him overall. Let's just not say that it isn't. Probably aiming for the forest fire somewhere. So, trying to find the release, which is at the bottom. And well, already finishing with the second longhouse, and well, still a lot of woodline for J4 to be using, so there's not any kind of problem. And you can see that he's already running away, so there's not going to be all that easy job for this Valkyrie to set the forest into fire. And needs to be careful with the Herseer. Get the correct placement, and well, this Valkyrie unfortunately is gonna have that, so it should be all that easier for all the opponents to get rid of it. There is already a pretty decent fight on the left, as TSM player and Popsy are going to be doubling against Shelty, but you can see that Shelty by himself is having basically the same number of units as two of his opponents. And that means that he's basically not needing any kind of help, and even though it is coming from Killer Boy, it should be pretty easy to defend for DT of that just now, and I don't see all that much of a problem for them coming up. Kinda interesting that actually Yellow didn't get any mythical unit, so he's probably housed or something. I'm kinda ashamed that we cannot actually look at it observer mode, but I would expect him that he's actually not having enough population limit, as there was a lot of fighting for him going on, and it seems like that actually green is going to be switching off into fighting purple in the middle. Gathered a very nice relic for the extra pair of lions, which is definitely gonna help, and it seems to be breaking off into basically 3 1v1s, and last, or rather, the one player that seems to be a bit struggling for the Teeth of Death is J4, but I think it's just kind of temporary, and he's just biding his time, waiting for the correct moment to attack. Yeah, these ravens and the bees are going to be a bit confusing me, it seems like, so there's not much else going on in here. And otherwise, in the pocket, yeah, Killer Boy seems to be doing a pretty good job. The same as Yellow on the left, but he really needs to be careful, as there seem to be some kind of good mythical spawns for a player, as we are having, unfortunately, some problems. This almost looks like kind of drop. And, well, so far we don't see really anybody lagging in here, but this is looking really not good. Let's talk about the game in the meantime, and really, Yellow has to be careful, a lot, because once he's fighting very far away from his home base, he's having the reinforcements quite slow as opposed to his opponent, and of course they are also not coming as fast as they could have. So that's double tempo for this player. Double tempo also for blue, so they should be having basically the same game. There is something happening with 7-up, it seems like. And let's see the difference in here otherwise. So that's double longhouse with 1 temple, with Hall of Thanes already coming up. And well, for the pocket on the other side, it's just double temple. So that is going to be a difference in here, of course. And let's see who is basically going to be choosing a better strategy. So far, it's really looking like Killer Boy should be having the upper hand, but it could also be because of the very strong relic for the faster Hersirs. And what is this one? Or the gold trickle. It's going to help, but not really anything game changing. What the ATs over there have to be worried about is actually 7-up playing the standard strategy. Yeah, he was somehow dropping the standard strategy that Temista made popular with all the Ulfsarks and such, and seems to be so far that he's basically forcing J4 into heavy defensive, which is not ideal at all. And let's hope that it's going to be working just about now. Hopefully it seems like that it will. And to finish with the thought, those Ulfsarks are pretty strong, and since they are basically the best unit, one of the best units against raiders. Oh shoot, didn't want to do that. I was just clicking to actually select those units. So we are going to be having to save. And to finish my thought, those Ulfsarks are going to be basically a counter to J4, so I'm not all that sure that his game is going to be all that easy as he maybe hoped for at the very start. Just talking in the chat about what could be the problem, as another house bleeder is taking a relic home, which is for trio helpful monkeys. Definitely nice one. Well, they definitely should be figuring out what's wrong, because we don't really want the game to go into, I don't know what, some kind of unfortunate drop that we wouldn't be able to restore. That would be pretty bad. But they seem to be yet again hoping that it's going to be fine. Right now the shield is going off, so hopefully it's going to be from now on alright for continuing playing. Anyway, this situation on the right between J4 and 7-up is developing into something that Killer Boy is not going to be all that happy about, because it seems like that he's gonna be kinda doubled, even though he at least has the troll. So that's not really all that bad, but it's almost looking like that 7-up is going to be doubling back and oh, into those guys exactly. Oh yes. That's going to be a bit of a problem with the hunt, but at the same time also Forest Fire. And this is actually very nicely played by 7-up, because he's using the opportunity of basically dividing attention of his opponent. So either he has to fluke at the fight at the top, or saving the villagers at the bottom, and well, nice idea, but unfortunately J4 was on top of that and didn't really need all that much extra time. Medium raiders already, as the Ulf circles are still normal. Whereas on the left we are seeing a pretty big engagement, as yet again Schulte is fighting alone, but at the same time, or rather at this time, it's not correct. And oh yeah, this is nicely played. Come on, one more, yes! This was very nicely played to actually catching Schulte into the trap in here. And even though he does have reinforcements, that really did result in some extra damage. And unfortunately for TSMs, and fortunately for ATs of Death, Killer Boy is joining into the fun and is going to be repelling the attack right here. So that's nicely played. And let's have a look, as he's also at the same time raiding in Blue's base. TSM player seems to be kinda halfway on top of it. Oh no, keep him alive. The spy needs to be alive, but unfortunately Valkyrie is dead just now through the trolls, nicely hidden behind the forest line. For me, probably not for the yellow player, but it's probably not going to matter all that much, as the fight is right now quite surely gonna switch into the blue's base, or maybe into purple's base, not exactly sure. But it should really be coming somewhere away from the ATs of that bases. Well, that's kinda gutsy, with 3 raiding cavalry trying to get rid of all those Ulfsarks who are already mediums. And that's of course yet again what we were talking about a bit earlier, that 7-up is going to be a bit more problem than J4 could be handling just now by himself, and definitely underestimated with those raiders. And oh well, this is going to be a problem for a late-ish game, or rather maybe for some extra minutes a bit later. Yeah, this is the extra army that was actually catching up with them. and he didn't. And let's have a look at the front line of J4, who is so far doing a pretty good job in here, but it was also because part of the army of 7UP is actually not fighting in here, and he's yet again sending the radiant into the opponents. Oh, this is so unlucky. This is so unlucky for Killer Boy, because he's having the spy exactly on the guy that is going back. At least he will know for the Teeth of Death that there is something happening from those 7UPs. Blue Sarks, but at the same time, it is not a surprise that he's coming back, and well, yeah, those guys are finally caught up with and should be joining their friends in Valhalla pretty soon. There is also a pretty big engagement in the middle between all the different colored Heresirs, like literally Heresirs everywhere. As the only known Loki civilizations are fighting on the right, the Odin versus the Thor. And well, we can see that right now this is quite nicely defended by Tsunami Clan, as they are also switching into second TC TSM player, and otherwise I don't see anybody else switching so far. But we are going to be seeing Heroic Ages. Temple from Yellow, but Killer Boy is switching probably into Heroic, as is Yellow, who is almost into Bragi. And second TC being built by Green, and otherwise House J4, who is, oh yes, this is yet again what I was talking about at the very start, going to be very important for the game, because if he controls this TC, he also pretty much controls this CC as well, and that means that 7UP is going to be limited to just one, and that's definitely not enough for the later game. Yep, they finally dealt with. We have seen the corpses in there on the left side, and we are seeing the Chalti as he advances the first one. And so far, the only one into the next age is going to be attempting a bit of a fight in the opponent's base. This is, well, nice wall, but what I wanted to talk about is the fact that it's basically right next to the TC. And if actually the Teeth of Death timed this correctly, I think with the flaming weapons they can actually delete a player's home base. And that, of course, would be a pretty big problem. So right now, a bit of radiant from the left, and the TC slowly coming up. But he's probably going to be picking into Bragi, as you can see the armory up also onto the safe TC. So that's not going to be any kind of problem with that. Towers research, so it's going to be making the attack a bit more different, or rather a bit more difficult, as we already see from Shelty switch into throwing axemen, which is exactly what was needed from the very start, as the Heresirs are basically the only unit that the Lokis are making, and this is going to disrupt the gameplay very strongly into, of course, favor of the team that is having the throwing axemen. So many Heresirs of different colors in here. So nice to see. Like a Christmas tree almost. And let's have a look at the bottom, where 7UP is right now stealing a TC from J4, who is absolutely unaware that something like this is happening, as the tower is too far away. And let's see if he's going to be able to push through in here, because a few units are at the bottom, but not really for much longer, as the population limit is going to be available to 7UP very soon as well. Medium throwing axemen, not any kind of upgrades, a lot of medium throwing axemen in here as well without any kind of upgrades, as J4 is basically trying to set up in this position. Whereas on the left we see a pretty big fight just about now, as Yellow is really pushing for it quite strongly, having no any kind of extra upgrades. For Blue, pretty much the same as well, and for Purple, for example, also nothing. Jimmy Stormslugger, that's a Norse name definitely. And yeah, finally Heroic Age is coming up for player as well, so the battle is going to be pretty much equal in here. On the right side, Killer Boy is trying to somehow get to Purple's base, but so far not really successful, as Purple is quite nicely ready with the defense as well and everything, and going to be switching into the pretty soon, as you can see Market already up, and he is already also queued in his DC. At the bottom, it's almost looking like that 7UP is having a better luck against his opponent J4, especially because of the mythical unit, obviously. Is J4 already in or not? No, he isn't. Just now he is, as we are talking about it. And that means that, really, Red should be going somewhere else and attempting to, for example, build a hill fort to protect the TC that you're talking about, that should be in power of the teal player. And really, he needs some kind of Heresirs or some kind of other mythical units, because he needs to get rid of the Frost Giants, which are a pretty big problem. And of course, with advancing through Scuddy for 7UP, he can basically counterplay flaming weapons very easily. So this is so far very nicely played by the red player, who didn't finish with the TC. You can see that at the last moment J4 has noticed, so that's pretty big victory for J4, because if he didn't, That would be a huge problem for him. And this battle right now, joined by Killer Boy, seems to be going well into Radies of Death favor. And oh, this is going to be TC steal, yes. So that's not a bad strategy, because those mythical units are definitely going to be controlling this position and allowing the TC to come up together with the Hellfort, I think. And if it does happen, that's going to be very important for this game, and even more important than potentially blocking some flame weapons. But yet again, this is opening the window of opportunity for J4 to go into Ragnarok, and then Ragnarok with flame weapons is going to be pretty hard for 7-Up to withstand, no matter how many TCs he's going to be having. Lair going into flame weapons as the fight is happening on the left with Popsy as well, and is it going to be all in? Ooh, that's a problem. That's right now a pretty big problem for Ladies of Death, because they are having 30 seconds of basically nothing they can do about flame weapons through the Fimbul Winter. And even though they cast it kinda early-ish, they definitely wanted to wait for the Fimbul Winter a bit better. Still half a minute left, so TC is definitely gone. And well, let's see if they are going to be able to actually retreat from the battlefield for long enough, because I'm not exactly sure, because the damage will be quite great. And even though they cannot then defend against the double flame weapons of their opponents, well, this might be very well worth it to actually get rid of the front TC and get into opponent's bases. Big Exodus, unfortunately, Spy still active on these villagers, so they know exactly what is happening in here. And well, on the right, we are seeing that unfortunately for Red, the Frost was actually for naught, for literally naught. And that might be a pretty big problem for him, because right now, J4 seems to be quite nicely prepared for the assault on his opponent, as he is attempting to finally take a second DC with one throwing Axeman. That's not like that's going to be enough. And if J4 is going to be ready for play Ragnarok, good luck dealing with this, because flaming weapons are all three in here for Ladies of Death. So this is going to be a very big problem for 7-Up, who is quite probably gonna get very hammered, and I'm not sure if it's not gonna result into getting totally wrecked. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it will, because he doesn't have the army at this point, and he doesn't have extra population limit. He doesn't have anything, like literally anything, as Green is right now trying to catch together with Yellow with all the blue, and they should be careful a bit more on the left, because obviously there is going to be extra mythical army coming up. So, flame weapons coming up with copper mail, copper weapons. How many actually units does he have? 57. So 57 Ragnarok, not the strongest, but not half bad, considering that his opponent isn't really prepared for it all that much. And even though he at least built all the hill forts and has the towers, it's still going to be pretty problematic for him. And it's going to be up to Killer Boy and Chelty if they can follow up with some nice battle, or rather nice attempts, and overtaking their opponents as well. This is going to be total wreckage of Red, who should be already retreating with all the villages. A lot of idols at the same time, not really ideal. And the TC is still not finished, just about now, at the last moment. And well, that's an extra population that potentially he could be using just now, as he's still building, having enough resources out of all the buildings here, but of course he's gonna lose all the houses as well. So, Red base basically done, as we are still seeing a lot of raiding all around the map in here. TSM player going to be sending in Hawk to help, which is of course going to help quite nicely, as there are just a few throwing axemen from Teal, or rather few, actually quite a decent number of them. Now it's going to be taking quite some time to get rid of the Nidhogg, so this is pretty much a fine defense, and yeah, defense should be something that Killer Boy should be thinking about quite a lot as well. Let's finish him with the gold. And oh, that's a good mythical spawn in here, and unfortunately it also means that he kinda underestimated getting after all this extra army. Mythical spawn just going absolutely everywhere, and here we go with Raiden. They are super fast. Super fast Fenris Wolves in here, and oh man, goodbye all the gold economy for Killer Boy, as he's losing a ton of villages in here in this very nice raiding. And really, this was severely underestimated by the Ladies of Death, and TSMs are definitely making their pay for this. And it's going to be a pretty interesting fight in the forefront, in the base of the Chelty, who has also lost the TC to some fire giants and whatnot nonsense. And with the flaming weapons right now being called for him, he's going to be attempting to go forward go forward, and let's see if he's going to be successful. He should be getting rid of this very easily. Could definitely use a bit more heresies against Fire Giants, not against Throwing Axemen. That's not really well done in the micromanagement department in here. And let's have a look somewhere else, for example, as there is a bit of raiding as well from Shelty in here, as he's attempting to raid the gold economy, basically the same as was done to Killer Boy. Mythic through Hell for Killer Boy, that should be cast in here. That will be absolute slaughter of all those villages. And of course, as we have seen a bit earlier, 7-Up is right now at 0 TCs, losing absolutely everything, and there is the storm still coming, as J4 is still not much dead. Yeah, we should definitely save it, as somebody probably dropped, not exactly sure who, but this game wasn't over. It was in very crucial moment, just basically deciding if it is going to be over or not, because the attack from J4 is very strong from the right side. And I'm not exactly sure if Popsy is going to be able to defend against this all that much. He could be stopping it at least, but this will basically free hands for the green player to go help fully on the left, and he still does have flaming weapons himself, so that could be quite useful for him. In the meantime, he has basically gotten rid of, or rather finally, of all the units in here. Rebellion at the bottom. It's nicely played by 7-Up, still having a pretty nice gold mine. And I have to check outside of the game if they maybe already went out. Just didn't show to me. Yep, they are already out. Yeah, they are already out. So let's just quickly check the post game in here. Just going to go through it. If somebody want to watch it on the stream or whatever, a bit later, you can pause it. So yes, we are where we left, with J4 owning the base of his red opponent, and also the purple one just about now. Oh, you can see 91% into 45 TC. Yeah, well, tough luck. That's not gonna come up. That's actually not really ideal for him, because it takes a long time to research that, and that will basically mean that he will probably get rid of the TC as well. But let's not be too hasty. The army here is pretty strong. The extra 5 from the towers and from the hill fort is also going to be decent. Still no armory upgrades, so that's a plus point for J4, of course, with all of those. And he does have all those heroes with the Thremon Axemen in there pretty healthy. Pretty healthy, so if I had to guess, or rather bet, I would think that he will be getting rid of both the TC and the hill fort. So let's see. On the left, a bit of raiding right now going on by Popsy. So deities of death should be careful about this. Especially Shelty should be somehow taking care of it. And well, those wolfies are of course... Ooh, there is a lot of them. There are 9 wolfies and they are damn fast. And the 40 attack. Let's get in fun. Oh, let's follow them. Where they are going to be ending up. Unless they actually come upon some kind of army of Heresiers, which they just may be about here. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty big problem. Because obviously he cannot really catch them, like at all. Literally at all. And well, with the extra attack. At 40. He could be just easily getting the TC, I think. But he's not going to be attempting so having a bit of fun around. And oh well, that's a big problem for yellow. As he's not having enough army in here for defense, just Killer Boy having a few of them. And even though he is right now joining in, this is going to be downtime in the economy. And with the wolfies arriving at the battle scene, they are, of course, gonna get a bit extra. They're ridiculously fast. And gonna kill absolutely everything in their path. This is too funny. But anyway, let's have a look somewhere else around the map, as the PC is gonna get down yet another one for Popsy, who is just now losing a TC exactly as is unfortunately for the Deities of Death. Killer Boy in here as well, so he's dropped to just one, the one at the back, and there is, oh yeah, goodbye all the gold goodies in here. Oh, this is so tough. This is so tough on Deities of Death, but really nice idea, and nicely played by Popsy in here, because this is definitely paying off as the correct strategy for them. 7-Up is right now going to be retaking his home base, as he's having enough army still, at least or rather enough resources, as J4 is continuing with deleting the opponents one by one, and he seems to have arrived just about now, with unfortunately Popsy already having the 45 TC upgrade right now, but with the other boy, yeah, having the Nidhogg, he's gonna get rid of the few villages in here as well. So that's yet another fun that we're gonna be seeing. Yeah, barbecue time. Come on, we need to control him a bit. Well, he isn't. So let's look somewhere else, as the Wolfies are still having a look around. And unfortunately, yep, the spies are still alive. We are at 20 minutes and the spies are unfortunately still alive. And this is yet another slaughter of about 10 plus villages. Yeah, basically they had absolutely no chance against all those Wolfies. And that means that the economy is gonna get a bit problematic right now for Shelty as well. And of course, this is gonna result in the purple player coming there as well pretty soon yet again, it seems. And they need to think up something else. I don't know, they should probably just give up on them and go full on offensive with their opponents, exactly as right now they are attempting to do so in the pocket. Shelter is in there, but well, unfortunately Nidhogg is still very much alive, and we need some fire giants in here. Or rather, deities of death need some fire giants in here if they are to overcome their opponents like that. So, J4 still successfully keeps his 7-Up at 0 TCs, but unfortunately the army is kinda growing, as the economy is still very much alive, especially in the gold department. 19 gold willies, that's very much fine for him. Well, there was a bit of an attempt by 7-Up to go into J4, but I don't really think that's going to be all that successful in there. But sooner or later, it really will. Oh, that's a bit risky. 30 villages coming for gold on one spot. That could be pretty nice meat for Nidhogg, but well, here we go. With the Wolfies coming for another Red Riding Hood. And the Huntsman as well. This is just too good. Anyway, on the left the battle is still very much open, and this game is kinda weird because we are at 23 minutes and we see that nobody is even having 3 TCs. We are seeing 2. All abilities of that side are having 2 TCs, whereas TSMs are 2-2-0. All the 3 TCs all around the map, but I don't really think that anybody is really having any kind of economy to support even 3 TCs. They are probably having all kinds of troubles with this, and those wolves are absolutely brutal. They should be really either wall in or just ignore them and go full into your opponent, because it's not like this isn't a whole lot of population limit. Fenrir's are how much? 5 population limit? 3 actually. So that's how many are there? 7. That's 21 population limit. That's 1 TC. So Popsy will be fighting with just basically 1. Oh, goodbye villages. And that would of course be a pretty big problem for him in any kind of defensive situation. 7-Up seems to be getting on his feet, getting back on his feet, as he is just now punishing J4 quite strongly, as J4 isn't right now up to par, as after his Ragnarok without the economy, he really isn't ready for anything, and right now with the double from all those Wolfies, together with at least a few army, or rather little army by Popsy, this one is pretty strong from 7-Up, with heavy throwing axemen, copper mail, copper weapons, and well, that's a pretty decent army, especially against just medium throwing axemen with at least the baseline, so this is pretty much the same, but there's not much that J4 can be doing against this kind of army, so he will definitely need help pretty soon. There is a bit of an attempt to raid all the gold willies in here. This is a pretty dangerous spot right now for TSMs, so they should be leaving this sooner rather than later, but they aren't, and all the villagers are gonna get killed, but so is also happening on the left side, on the bottom left side, let's say, of J4's base, as there is yet again a lot of army getting killed and a lot of Wolfies as well, as right now finally Killer Boy caught up with him, but it wasn't without heavy losses on the economy of J4, who is right now in a pretty deep trouble, as he's probably gonna lose absolutely everything. It doesn't seem like that help will be arriving in time. On the left side, Yellow is having basically an equal fight with TSM player, so they are fighting at basically just one spot all the time. They haven't moved anywhere in the time that we haven't looked here. And well, finally Killer Boy going for fully the weapons, and that's going to be because he wants to get rid of 7-Up, who is quite a big problem. Yep, in J4's base, so let's see if he's going to be preventing at least the co-ops of the TC. I don't think so. Those 3 portable rams should be getting rid of it. Just fine. That's nicely played, but at the same time it also means that 7-Up is gonna be forced a bit more into his home base. But also he's having pretty decent economy and is nicely prepared for absolutely everything. So I don't think that he is all that badly set up. He has to be careful about those Huskarls, as they are attempting to raid all the economy, as the remaining heroes of Ragnarok still very much alive, trying to do the same. And well, this could be basically a break-it moment if J4 can somehow get up from the 0 TCs into 1, and with the help of Killer Boy, yet again, kill 7 up altogether. On the left, there has been an attempt to take the TC form player, who is seeming to be having a bit of an upper hand, as they are still fighting Hersirs against Hersirs. A lot of mythical spawns right now on the yellow side, but the Nidhogg is just a huge problem, and they somehow need to get rid of him. You can see Fairy Giants coming from TSM player, and I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, because Schulte isn't in the mythic, so that's the reason why he isn't having them himself, and he really doesn't seem to be ready at all. He's right now moving with the breeze somewhere else to be meat for all those wolves, and before that happens, I don't really think that actually Schulte could be having any kind of significant chance against this opponent. Let's see if he's able to do so, because if he isn't, the player is most definitely gonna push through him sooner rather than later. With any kind of military upgrades, looking at the player, he is having already Bronzeman and Copper Shield, so this is just confirming that this battle is more or less lost for a player, and especially will be if this town center is finally coming under his power, and Dominion as well. Well. J4 kinda content with 0 TCs, asking for gold, so they are definitely not giving up. But looking at, well, the situation in here, it doesn't really seem like that 7-Up should be all that scared about his opponent, rather, of his opponent. And with all the mythical units in here, and throwing Axeman backing that up, that's a pretty decent combo, and it's going to be a pretty big problem for Deities of Death in here. Wolfie's finding something else at the bottom, yeah, going to be finding trade route. But that's not something they would be interested in, and they are going for sure here. As player is attempting to build a temple at the very back, as he is hoping they can surprise his opponents. Not sure why this guy isn't going to the top, as he's probably thinking that Deities of Death wouldn't be thinking about going to the same spot for the rather X time. It's kind of disappointing. Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, come on. I wanted to see another slaughter of the villages in here. But, well, that's not going to happen just about now. So let's see somewhere else, as there is still very much alive Nidhogg for Killer Boy, who is yet again also preventing gold gathering from his opponents. There seems to be a trade already coming up from somebody. Yeah, from blue, you can see. As gold has just run out, but there are still a lot of gold mines. The one at the bottom, for example, there is a gold mine. There's literally a lot of gold in the middle of the map. So yeah, there's still a lot of chances for the players to go for them. On the left, it seems like that actually Schulte is doing a pretty much beastly job against his opponent, keeping him off bay. Right now, fighting against extra TC, and much more importantly, he's fighting against a Mythical Age guy with pretty decent upgrades. Already Iron Mail and Copper Shields, so yeah, that's pretty much a whole level stronger than what Schulte is having, but there is going to be needed help from Killer Boy pretty soon, because the situation is getting quite dire, and the extra pop and the extra upgrades are definitely getting noticed in here. Well, a bit of raiding into the gold, so it's very nicely played right now by Killer Boy, who is still trying to make something happen, as he's also setting up himself quite nicely next to front TC of basically Schulte in here, so that he could be helping either on the left or on the right, depending on what the situation dictates. The situation on the left seems to be controlled for at least this moment, but on the right it's not really all that much for J4, as even though he has built his TC, and Killer Boy is attempting to build his own. Unfortunately, the Raven is here quite nicely ready. We see that J4 is resigning, as he doesn't have anything to get rid of this army, and that means that this very interesting game is gonna go after Tsunami Clan. That was really unusual and a very good game, and it's a bit of a shame that we actually haven't seen, or rather haven't gotten the whole recorded game, but still, at least we have the stream in here. Really nice one. So that also means that Tsunami Clan are winning this match, these quarterfinals 2-0, and are advancing into the semifinals, where they will face 2K4Jesus, the opponents they faced in the finals, in the grand finals of the last season. So that's going to be quite nice revenge time for JSS. Let's check the post game then. Our player winning absolutely everything. Well, to be honest, he did play quite nicely. But I also liked the of that how they played. They didn't play half bad. I'm not exactly sure where it went all wrong for them. That was a pretty nice raiding overall, and I think that was the reason. The raiding that happened from blue and purple into the back, that was severely underestimated by both Killer Boy and Shelty. That killed a whole lot of economy, and I think that was the start of the problems in there. And the Wolves followed only after. Only way after in there, so yeah, I think the raiding won it for TSMs. Because up to that point, the Keys of Death were definitely looking at it like they were going for a win. Very strong echo, like a really strong echo, especially compared to others that he played. He probably had all the upgrades, I would be guessing. Yeah, he had absolutely everything in here. For Shelty, he was having just the baseline, not even on the wood, hand ducks. Same baseline for Killer Boy, and for J4, probably going to be the same. Yes, the same. 7 up. He's shaft mine, so that's better. Then the base, and the last one to have a look at Popsy. Yeah, he doesn't really care about upgrades, obviously. But player's economy really pulled through. Yeah, upgrades yet again for a player because he was having the stronger economy and could afford to spend on it, but otherwise pretty much equal. Not really anybody standing out all that much. And J4 at the end, well, with 20 villages, but of course he was after Ragnarok, so that was understandable that he was gonna be having a very tough game for him. 7 up still at 30, was able. Be too much to handle for Deities of Death deal player. Well then, GG.